Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Blue Ridge Silverhound. I have a phenomenal video here for you today, and as the title suggests, all right, 5 things that successful coin roll hunters do that others don't. And where I'm trying to get with this is discuss the people that actually do coin roll hunting as an actual job, all right? And these folks, you know, they earn $50,000 a year, $75,000. In the case of a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, Rich, and his wife actually do it full time, and they've been doing it full time for about 6 years now. So he's always been, you know, a rather private guy. So I've been messaging back and forth with him. I've known him for nearly as long as I've had my channel up. So it's coming up on about 9 years, give or take. So he's always been a private guy, okay, you know, for a number of reasons, because of what he does for a living, along with his wife. And, you know, what I wanted to do is share a little bit of some of his best practices that he does to be successful in coin roll hunting. Now, he was okay with it because he's actually kind of winding down with coin roll hunting. His wife lost her job a few years ago, and now she's coming up to another opportunity. They've decided to kind of put coin roll hunting on the back nine of what was deemed to be a really cool experiment from what he said. So he said, Blue Ridge, Sean, buddy, I think it's time that we start, you know, throwing out exactly some of those best practices that I've been following and, you know, go from there. Now, how much exactly are we talking about? How much is Rich and his wife making collectively from doing coin roll hunting as their profession, I guess? That's a great question. Well, 2 consecutive years for 2017 and 18, they have made, profit-wise, over $110,000. It was actually better in 2017, and it dropped a few thousand for 2018 when they did their books. So that's phenomenal. That is absolutely amazing. Now, without giving up too much information, they live on the western part of the United States, okay? And the reason why I'm kind of like making it as broad in general is it's actually part of the 5 things that successful coin roll hunters do. Now, there are a few people that, you know, do some of these, but they're not afraid to kind of share the exploits of doing such a thing. But for those of you that don't know what coin roll hunting is, as you can see, I have a few boxes here, okay? So this is kind of generally what you're going to be looking for when you go to the bank, okay? You're going to ask for full boxes of a specific denomination of coin, whether it's pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, or even half dollars, which, you know, for the longest time seems to be one of the more popular denominations to look for. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But what you would do is you would obtain rolls of your favorite denomination of coin. You'd go through them, and you would make money off of the coins that you found in these rolls. So we'll get to that here in a second. So there's 5 items I'm going to talk about, but there's 2 honorable mentions along with a whole host and slew of other kind of like tips and tricks that you can follow to be successful. All right, so they've been doing this again for about 6 years. They've had a lot of fun. They've logged and tracked every single aspect of their profession of coin roll hunting. It's kind of hard to believe that you could be so intentional and focused on doing something like this when so much can go wrong, or, you know, whatever. But a couple of the honorable mentions that I wanted to bring up regarding what they're doing, and anybody can do this, I suppose. The reason why I gave a generalized kind of like, you know, region of where my buddy lives is you don't want to give up your searching areas on social media, YouTube included. So he is a member of a few Facebook groups. He's what they call lurker. So he doesn't comment on anything. He has an active account. He doesn't start new threads. He doesn't talk about what he does on the side. because this is how he pays his bills, you know, things of that nature. So if you want to become successful in coin roll hunting, you want to make sure you want to keep it as discreet and low key as possible. That's important if you're going to grow, because he even told me he knows a few other people close to where he lives by that coin roll hunts, and he would always bump into them on a daily basis going to specific banks. So it's kind of funny that he brought that up. And he said it gets pretty interesting sometimes. The second honorable mention, he said, you know, not everybody needs to do this, but they keep high and tight accounting and bookkeeping with everything, from how much gas they spend to even as far as like putting together receipts for like lunches and things like that, because I guess they do taxes on this sort of thing, even though it's kind of like under the table, you know, money, I guess. I don't know. But he said keeping track of all of your expenditures and how much you make and how much you put into it is important, because that's the only way you'll know if you're becoming profitable doing this sort of thing. Okay, coin roll hunting is especially one of those things that you just never know what's going to happen. It's almost randomized in some regards, but frequency is key when you're coin roll hunting. The more coin and the more face value that you go through on a weekly basis plays a huge role. So that's going to be one of the best practices I'm going to talk about in here. So we're going to go ahead and get started on like the top 5 best practices that my buddy Rich lives and breathes for when he's doing the coin roll hunting. Number 5, okay, he came up with a pretty neat method called the 20 and 5. All right. Essentially is you don't dump where you eat. You ever hear that expression? Maybe in not that kind of way, but more in the PG-13 kind of way. The 20 and 5 method is you designate X amount of banks. In this case, we're going to use 20 because that's what he put out there. You're going to utilize 20 banks that you pick up your quality coins from. So these are going to be the banks that you know provide and give up either like sealed bank rolls, or they have higher concentrations of customer wrapped rolls. You're going to designate the good banks as where you pick up, okay? And then you're going to designate about 25% of that amount. So let's say you have 20 banks. You're going to designate 5 banks to be what you call the dump banks. So the dump banks is where you would send your coins back, you deposit them back into the bank, and then you would go back to your pickup banks. All right. He said the more banks that you are members of, the better, because you're going to have a wider kind of selection of various types of rolls. And he is kind of selective on the specific like areas that he will choose banks from. Like some of the more affluent areas of the metropolitan area that he lives in, he does a lot of coin roll hunting through those areas, because, you know, people don't typically coin roll hunt in areas where there's higher valued homes and you have like rich people, which makes a lot of sense. When I was living in the Bay Area, I used to pick up coin from more affluent neighborhoods, and I can attest to this as being tried and true and correct, that you will find much better quality coins in certain areas of where you live. All right. Some of you are asking, well, I live in a smaller town. How does that work? Maybe I only have 3 or 4 banks. Well, you would designate 3 banks as being your pickup banks and 1 bank as a dump. You know, you don't ever return the same coins back to the bank that you picked up your coin from, because they're just going to recycle it back to you if you go back to them to pick up more coin. Half dollar roll hunters can attest to that, because half dollars are extremely difficult to order. There is only so many banks, and unless you have that kind of like fluid relationship with a branch manager, it's going to be very difficult. In some cases, some banks charge fees to order full boxes because they just don't keep stuff like that in their vault. So that's the number 5 thing on there. So number 4, What Rich does is he sells all of his silver locally and then everything else online, you know, like eBay, Facebook, you know, things of that nature. All the silver is easy to liquidate locally. He actually has, I think he said about 10 or 12 people that stack silver, and he goes to them to sell the silver at full market value, okay, which is essentially what the melt value is at that given day, that given time. So he's always on tap with like Coinflation and you know, a few of the other sites that does live updates on silver prices. And he said for as long as he's been doing it, and you know, he goes through between $10,000 to $15,000 in coin per week. He has never found a gold piece. So the gold doesn't quite apply for selling it locally, but you can. It's much in the same, you know, kind of direction there. But everything else was that constitute. Well, it constitutes varieties, errors, you know, key dates, bulk coin of a specific date or type, like wheat cents. You know, he'll amass a ton of it, and then he'll go ahead and sell it as a bulk lot. All right, to give you an example. So at number 3, okay, he said this is extremely important because if you're going to have if you're going to pick up coins from specific banks on a weekly basis, you want to make sure you stay on their good side. So he said giving back to the tellers and the branch managers is right up there with like number 1 and number 2. We actually discussed the actual kind of the layout of the list here. Giving back to your tellers, okay, is extremely important. What he does is he'll drop off like $5 gift cards at Starbucks or, you know, Jimmy John's or something like that. And so, you know, depending on the bank, they won't accept gratuity in that way. But they're, you know, like some of the smaller like credit unions, he said, or, you know, there are a few banks where you could slip stuff like that to them and it's fine. But being able to reciprocate back to the people that kind of help feed you is very important, because if you don't do that and you're constantly going through 10,000 plus in change every week, they're going to get tired of it. Okay. If you're not using good, I guess, bedside manner when you're picking up your coins, they're going to shut off the faucet. Okay, he said when he first started coin roll hunting, he didn't really give any thought about to, you know, the bank tellers and the managers. You know, it's just like, oh, they could order it for me. I'll just keep asking and asking. And sooner or later, the bank teller, the manager of a specific bank got tired of it and shut him off completely. And it happened to him about 4 or 5 instances in one bank where it was like his major honey hole. He lost out because of, you know, not being as much attentive, you know, because you almost have to kind of like, you know, just pray to them every single time you go to the bank, you know, like really suck up a little bit. But he said giving back to the tellers is an important thing when you're going through and doing this for a living. Number 2 on the list, and he said this is extremely important because when he first started getting into it, he was only in it for looking for silver. He got caught up in the wave, okay? The wave was between like 2010 and 2012, 13. There were a ton of people coin roll hunting half dollars. And that's where a large concentration of silver was being discovered and found. So he got into it, and it was fantastic. But there's a lot more, okay? He ended up identifying other opportunities to make money elsewhere within these coin rolls. So the silver was a good one. He said it wasn't the most important thing because it took everything as a collective unit to make all this money that they've made in the past 6 years. But he said the first 2 years was kind of like an experiment to see where it would take him. His wife was still working at the time, and he was doing contracting work. So he was just doing silver at the time because that's all he had time for. And but he ended up identifying, you know, like key dates. He's found a few key date coins, like he's found a few 50D nickels. When he pulls out silver, he's found a 32S Washington quarter. Like, who in the heck finds stuff like that? Errors, varieties. His wife apparently is the guru when it comes to errors and varieties. She's always online researching and even leans out to me to, figure out what something is. Errors, varieties, and knowing your market too. Like this year, he said he's already 3/4 of the way of how much he made last year. And he made just over 110K. He's already 3/4 of the way through because of the West Point quarter promotion. Yeah, it's amazing how things like that can change. He said he's sold a few hundred of these already, and his wife is actually sorting through a bunch of quarters, and they're finding a lot of neat stuff. So knowing your market too. He said if he had to think about it, he wished he could have gotten in on the heat wave of the 2009 nickel craze, where at the time, full nickel rolls were selling for like 10, 20 bucks a roll. Where are they selling out today? Hundreds of dollars for a full roll. It's kind of crazy, but he wished he would have been in the game at that point in time. He said he would have made $200,000, maybe $300,000 if he would have played around in 2009 for the nickels. And I told him, well, these things are worth lots of money now. So knowing everything there is to find, okay, because it's not just about silver, it's about key dates, varieties, errors, what's the hot coin. This year it's the West Point quarters. 2009 nickels back 10 years ago. So there's a bunch of different type of, areas to focus on when you're doing this sort of thing. And as long as you know all that, you're good, and you have something that's more driven and focused when you're searching. So the last best practice, if you want to make a ton of money coin roll hunting, is I was hoping I wouldn't have to say this as the number one, but he said the consistency and working nearly every single day of the week to pick up coins, to search. He said he was putting in 10, 12-hour days, and so was his wife. His wife, she's actually tired of it, but putting in nearly a full week's work into doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you, it's not the easiest thing to do because it is hard work, but it's very enjoyable work. It's like, get your hands all dirty and sticky, and it's a lot of fun because you're pulling out, a $10 coin, here's silver coin, error right here. And he said, if you want to do this full-time as your job, you want to have the ability to open yourself up to do it. He said about 6 to 7 days a week. And I'm like, really? 7 days? He said, yeah, sometimes you have to put it in if you're falling behind, because he keeps track of, all the finds and how much money they've made. If you're falling behind at a certain point in the month, then it's go time. It's almost like car sales. What? We're halfway through the month. You only sold 2 cars? Man, you better get out there and sell me something. So that's the number one is actually very funny. He said, it's all about patience and being intentional. Okay, if you intend on doing this, you have to do it, and you have to follow by it. He said also, another good thing to also point out is to make a plan. Okay, what do you intend on putting into it as far as, the money that you want to spend to get rolls? Do you want to spend $2,000 a week, going to the banks, doing this, doing that? He said if you outline your weekly budget, it's much more, there's more direction to it, I guess, and there's more focus. Again, you know exactly how much is going out compared to how much is going in. He said, but it's a lot of fun because you're playing with house money. Okay, where it stops becoming fun is when the banks all of a sudden want to impose like a $25 fee or a $5 fee to order, boxes of rolls like this, right here. And, he said most of all, have fun. Keep a large stack of books. Keep your laptop or your computer handy to do some research. There's a lot of websites. He said the Cherry Picker's Guide has been awesome. Plus, he's also ordered a couple kind of like complimentary compendium type reference books, like the one that Chuck Daughtry wrote, and he made a small number of them, but it's a big old thick book of varieties outside of Cherry Picker's Guide. He said he can't even recall how many regular Joe Schmo Lincoln pennies they sold for $5 a piece, because they're like a minor double die that was in doubledie.com and or coppercoins.com. But, you know, he said, you know, don't just stick to one denomination. Do all of the denominations. And finally, what he wanted me to tell you, okay, there's going to be 2 denominations that he feels like is going to offer a lot of future potential. He said $half is starting to dry up. Okay, the silver is starting to dry up, but you still have people that dump, you know, silver and stuff that they don't know is valuable in there. But he said Lincoln pennies, by far and away, is one of like the top ones to continually focus on. And he said dollar coins. He said the only reason why he didn't go into dollar coins is he didn't want to tie up as much money as he wanted to search that. Plus, there's no guarantee. There's no kind of like, you know, nothing to fall back on. Whereas like in $half, if you're looking for some of those really nice varieties in there, you can't find any. You have the silver to fall back onto. So you have 2 things that essentially kind of help balance the prospect of searching $half. But he said every single bank that he goes to has like bags of these things. They cannot get rid of them. And he feels like that it's going to offer up tons of opportunity for searching for some of those missing edge letterings, some of the doubled edge letterings that you see on the John Adams, various types of errors, you know, things like that. So he said those are the 2 denominations that he feels like is going to kind of like bust wide open and, you know, offers lots of future potential in coin roll hunting. But aside from that, that's kind of like his testimony, and he said he's going to be winding down here in the next 6 to 12 months. He wants to get through the West Point quarter program this year and then completely cut it off. He said he's getting pretty tired. He's been doing it for 6 years, and he's probably going to go back to work full time for a company he worked at before. He took leave because of an injury, so he was doing this. And anyways, a lot of fun. It's very eye-opening that I had no idea that people made this kind of money. I've witnessed people on like Coin Talk and all that, because there was a Roll Searchers thread on there. There's a guy that makes like 50 grand a year. I'm like, man, that's crazy. But he goes through a lot of coin too. But anyways, it was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for joining in on this one. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the views and support. Feel free to subscribe. Hit the like button. I am going to be doing giveaways all summer long. You never know. I might be giving away a roll of pennies. Actually, it's going to be much more than that. But share, subscribe. Would love to hear your comments. So you guys have a great Friday, and I'll see you on the next one.